Shalom, this is R Shira. Welcome to our Rosh Chodesh Tammuz question and answer. We've got some interesting questions that have been written in by some students from around the world, and some interesting answers, hopefully, to satisfy our curiosity. So, the first question that was written in by someone, I believe in California, asked, I noticed that you wear tefillin when you're learning Torah. And I thought tefillin was for when we pray. So I thought that's a wonderful question to answer on Rosh Chodesh, because the idea of tefillin is certainly connected with the idea of Rosh Chodesh. The renewal of the month is related to the renewal of the moon, the renewal of kingship, and the renewal of the mind. Now, the tefillin is basically an amulet. It is 4 parshas of the Torah written on parchment with divine names. Now, amulets are not anything new in world religions, and certainly people have believed in the power of amulets for millennia, thousands of years. And the Jewish people are one of those. We were commanded, though, by the Torah to make tefillin. And the tefillin that we wear today are considered some of the best ever written in terms of their physical production. But why do we wear them when we learn? And what's the difference between wearing them when we learn and when we daven? Well, the idea of wearing tefillin when we learn, which are the Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, the idea of wearing tefillin in general is the idea of alignment. Aligning the upper world with the lower world. Aligning heaven with earth, the place that we exist in. Now, tefillin contain the statements of Moses in the Torah that deal with tefillin and other matters. And remember, we speak of the verses of the Torah not as simply sentences spoken a few thousand years ago to a prophet in the desert. We speak of them as living verses that are constantly being spoken by the Creator, because we believe that the entire creation is being renewed every day. So when we have that idea in mind, we can understand that there's some other power operating connected to tefillin. And this realignment of the mind renews the mind, which of course is connected to Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. And every Rosh Chodesh for that matter. The renewal of the moon happens at this time, and so does the renewal of a woman's body happens on a monthly cycle. There are many monthly cycles inscribed into the Jewish calendar, and they all have to do with the idea of new life, new power, new clarity, and new understanding. So the tefillin that we wear, how do they work? They are these verses of Torah with divine names written in them, and we wear them on our head. Well, the tefillin themselves are made of leather that is properly treated, leather from a cow, and with a special ink, written with special intention by a sofer, a scribe, who is very learned in the issues of tefillin, and not only tefillin, but most of all of the halachic body of Judaism. And his intention, when he's writing, is to create a holy amulet that you're going to wear when you pray and when you learn. That intention, Rabbi Nachman teaches us, enters the ink, literally, as the spiritual power of his mind, entering the ink that's on that quill. And then that quill delivers the ink to the cloth, which is lambskin or cow skin, well treated, very soft and smooth, and good for writing and absorbing ink. So what happens? This ink is a hyper-absorbent material that receives from the intentions of the author of the tefillin. And it receives from the quality of the soul that's emanating from him while he's writing. And that ink is written on the paper in the forms of the letters. Those letters are not, we believe, they are not human designed. They are letters that were given to us by the Creator. There have been several different opinions about the letters. There was a renewal of the alphabet of the Hebrew at the time of Ezra HaSofer, right, who was the great leader who brought the Jews back from Babylon. He changed the style of the writing of the letters. There was an ancient Ivri script that is still known of today but not used in general Jewish practice. But nonetheless, the forms of the letters, Rabbi Nachman teaches, correspond to God's will for communicating the essence of those letters. So, for example, a yud, the letter yud, which is like a little dot, corresponds to yad. You see, the name of the letter is inscribed with implied meaning, yud, yad, the hand. Okay? The peh, the letter peh, which the word peh means mouth. If you look at it sideways at a peh, right, it looks like a mouth in profile. Right? A head actually with a mouth and even a little tongue in the opening of the side of the peh. Each of the letters has this type of implied meaning that is derived from its name. But each of the letters also has a numerical value according to its order in the alphabet. The alphabet is 22 main letters from Aleph to Taf. And in Kabbalah, we treat these letters as the beginning of the light and the end of the light. The beginning of revelation with Aleph and the end of the revelation with Taf. That is important because this translates into gradations of holiness. That we say the beginning of the light is the holiest. That when God first revealed himself in the world, there was a greater emanation of light. And through the generations, the light has slowly gone down until our time. That's also represented in the letters. Now, when the Sofer writes these letters and his intention is absorbed into the ink and put on the paper in the forms of these letters with their intentions, obviously there's a lot of power there. But that's only power to the human mind. How does it work that I put the leather box on my head and I think better? I pray better. I'm more focused. My thoughts flow smoother from the head to the heart to the mouth. Now, when we move from head to heart to mouth, we're actually moving through the sphirot of the tree of life. We are taking a higher light and we're bringing it down to a lower level. So when we learn with tefillin on, we're actually getting, well, a performance enhancement amulet, right? Because if anybody has learned on a regular basis, which thank God I have had the merit and honor to do for 25 or more years at Yeshivat Nar Shalom with some very old sages of the Kabbalah and the Talmud, who I respect tremendously. When you learn day by day by day, you start to notice the differences in your learning, your clarity, your focus, your intuition, your extrapolation of meaning, your interrelations of ideas. All these are different mental functions. And you can tell when you're on your game or when you're not. Just like if you play basketball and you're on your game, Or if you're a painter and it's just flowing out of you and you create a beautiful painting in an hour, where other days you could paint for 5 hours and come up with nothing. So the tefillin are this object that actually focuses the light of the Torah into the mind. And that's why halachically it has to be right here. Now, why does the tefillin have to be right here on the top part of the cerebellum? It's because this is the part of the mind where we say the third eye, the einei hasechel, the eyes of the intellect, resides. Because everybody knows when you close your eyes in meditation, what you see with inside your head is the third eye. Now, a lot of people, their third eye is not opened at all. And some people it is a little bit, and some people it gets bigger and bigger. And I like to call it the inner theater. That as you go along this path and this derech, you will see that inner eye is also a place, a tablet on which you can write. And that is one of the secrets of Jewish meditation that we'll be learning about in our Patreon classes in the coming months. What is the special quality of Jewish meditation compared to all the other meditations? And what are those meditations that the prophets used to achieve their high states of union with God? And are those for us? We're back and we're having all kinds of fun with our production. So we're not going to be put off the path by the obstacles. Rather, they're going to strengthen our desire to do what we're doing. So we were speaking about the tefillin as this divine amulets that channel and help focus the mind on the work of praying to God and learning His Torah. And what I can tell you is try it. Try it and you'll see a quantitative change in your ability. But He gave us His names in order that we would have a tool to call back to Him. But we want to think of the name not simply as a name, but rather as a divine combination lock of sound. That those names contain power that are released in us when we say them. Because God is everywhere, especially inside us. So when we release His name through us, it channels power through us. And each name has a different power and a different quality. And this subject of the names is another subject that we were going to touch on in the future on our master classes on Patreon. So this little discussion about the tefillin, wearing them when we learn, there's endless things written about tefillin, and they're all wonderful, and they're all connected with the renewal of the mind and its power. And there's a reason why we don't sleep with the tefillin on, because it's not considered honorable. But it's also because we don't need to wear them when we're sleeping, because the soul is already going up when we sleep. We need to wear the tefillin so we can bring the soul down into consciousness. And so on and so forth. We don't wear tefillin on Shabbat because Shabbat already brings down the light of Hashem into our mind. And so when we start to compare the mitzvot and the times that the rabbis gave us, you see there's a brilliance, there's a genius in helping man come closer to God, bringing heaven down to earth inside our minds and inside our hearts. Okay, so that's one question that I hope is satisfactorily answered. You know, there is much to be read about it. Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan has a wonderful book on tefillin in English, and it's really worth a look. Now, I've been asked, well, what about women? Can't women wear tefillin? And this is a complex issue, especially in our generation. But the baseline halacha is women can wear tefillin. They shouldn't wear it in public because it's not considered their mitzvah to wear tefillin, especially in public. It's going to attract attention. And in Judaism, we don't want to attract extra attention, except in heaven. In heaven, we like to attract attention. God, listen, hear me, I'm here. That's fine. But we don't want to wear tefillin as a woman. To wear tefillin in public is to create a lot of controversy, and there's no point. You don't need the controversy, you need the connection to God. So if you're that type of woman who wants to have a strengthen your connection to God, you can wear tefillin. Now, if you wear them 3 days in a row, then halachically, the rabbis say it's as if you've made a neder, a vow, and then you're required to wear them every day. So that's a problem. Now, the famous example the rabbis give is the Rashi, the holy commentator on the Torah, Rabbi Yitzhak of Shlomo Yitzhaki from 11th century France. He had 3 daughters who were considered extremely righteous and learned. And we're told that they wore tefillin. Now, how often and where, I don't know. But I doubt they wore them in the streets of 11th century Provence, France, when the Crusades were alive and well. So the next question we were going to talk about is written from a friend in yeshiva, a young man who's new to Judaism and new to observant practice. And he's also American. And he writes, how does a person be modest in an immodest culture? Whenever I look, I see immodesty. I feel like I can't guard my eyes. Not in the street and not online and even in my own head. Please help. So this is a very important question for people of all levels of observance, because our mind is our gateway, it's our portal to the divine. And what I put into my mind sticks to the filter of consciousness. And whatever I see will be recorded, whether consciously or unconsciously. And we know that the greatest prophet of all, Moses, had what was called the isplakaria ameira, the shining lens, that his mind was so clear that God could directly translate himself into his mind. Whereas each time we see things that are unpleasant or not appropriate, that becomes a block or a smudge or some kind of defect on the lens. Ad kedei kach, we're not supposed to look at dead animals when you pass them on the road. We're not supposed to look at body parts, and we're not supposed to look at other unpleasant things, because the neshama is from that higher realm. And the neshama is down here. Your holy soul is down here on loan, if you will, right? On loan to your body so that you can exist in this world and work with her. But if my neshama, which is my lens, is getting touched by impurities, it's not able to translate the power that is inherent in your soul. Now, the great master Kabbalist, Rav Yisrael Abu Chatzera, the Baba Sali, takes a phrase from Shlomo HaMelech, from Mishlei, and he turns it on its head, and he reveals a double meaning in this famous verse that says, Ayin ro'eh v'lev chomed. The ayin sees and the heart desires. Meaning, you see something, you want it. The classic example, of course, is Adam seeing the fruit in the garden, that ancient metaphor for the knowledge of good and evil. It's a metaphor for the duality consciousness that was outside Adam and Eve before they fell. They had the unity consciousness that we're all striving for to begin with. But when you have something that you don't know how to compare it, you don't know that you have it. In other words, when it's all God in the beginning, you have nothing to measure what that means. And so Adam and Eve had to go through the whole game. It wasn't really a game, but it's kind of like game theory. They had to go through this process of losing their unity consciousness to see the duality. And by seeing the duality of good and evil, they could reappreciate the consciousness they had before they fell. So that's the idea of the eating from the apple. It wasn't an apple. The rabbis in the Talmud tell us several different fruits, each corresponding to a different sphere, a different filter of the mind again. But they entered the state of seeing good and evil from the previously pristine state of the unified field of consciousness. Okay, when that happened, then they could start making distinctions. So Baba Sali takes this pasuk, Ayin ro'eh v'lev chomed, your eye sees it and your heart wants it, and says, no, read it the other way. Alev chomed, the heart wants, and then your eye is guided to see it. So that when I see something, it's not necessarily because You know, somebody forgot to get dressed on the streets of Miami Beach. It might be because that thing is inside the heart already. And God is showing me what's in my heart by what I see in the world. Another way of saying this is what the Baal Shem Tov says. When you hear someone speak bad about somebody, that aspect that is being spoken about bad about somebody is actually inside us. Otherwise, I wouldn't see it. Because we live in an integrated plane of spiritual awareness. We're not aware of it, but it's there. And that's how we become aware of it. So Baba Sali took the idea of seeing and wanting and turned it around and said, wanting, in a hidden way I want something, and it comes out through my vision. I'm shown where my heart is really holding. Now, some people might have a hard time with this. But I think it's better to be truthful and know where I'm holding than to imagine that I'm higher on a higher level than I'm at, a higher level of purity of heart. Now, of course, we do have a place inside us that really is pure, that is untouchable like a diamond, and unscratchable, and unblemishable. And that is the upper neshama. But it's like a satellite in space trying to send messages down to us, and our filters are not clear. So when we live in an immodest culture, we need some serious sunglasses, right? And we need some serious prayer and learning in order to create a fire. Rabbi Nachman says, the fire of your enthusiasm for God will purify the heart. Just like fire smelts ore and produces silver or gold. Just like you heat up the heart and it burns away the external visions. And our enthusiasm clears the lens so that I can see spiritually the truth of things. But if my lens is not clear, I'm going to be led around like a dog on a leash. And it's not just with ideas of relations and people's bodies and all that kind. It's true with all desires. You ever walk into a place and pull out a $100 bill, watch people's heads turn? Why? Because people want money. It's natural. Now, why is that? It's just another bill of billions of bills. No, but you pull a bill out, people turn their heads because the desire for money is in the heart. And the same thing with naked bodies, and the same thing with food. Bring out some food. Beautiful platter of food in a restaurant. Everybody turns their head while the platter's going by in the waitress's hands. Why? Because it's attractive to us. It is attractive to us. Fine. It's beautiful food. But you know, there's a halacha about this. It says that you're not supposed to look at other people's food when you're eating. Now, it's a strange halacha, if you ask me. I mean, I grew up in a secular family where we never knew these things. But when you're modest, you don't look at other people's food during a meal. It's fascinating because it actually takes discipline. And so there's a lot of we call this derech eretz in Hebrew, the way of the land. It's the way of holiness in our everyday activities. But it all has to do with, like what Baba Sali said, Alev chomed. I want pizza. Suddenly I catch every billboard that has pizza. If I don't want pizza, I don't even see the billboards. And it's true for everything. So I hope my friend is listening. And if not, I'm going to have to send him an archive of this. Because this is the only hope we have. We have to fill our heart with fire for Hashem, and it cleans the lens, and we start over again. Now, obviously, I don't want to go to places where I'm going to be tempted to look all the time. Whether it's virtual places, or it's the beach, or it's a nightclub, we all know about it. Anybody that's been there knows. Okay, but this goes much deeper, friends. Much deeper. Where does it go? It goes all the way back to the beginning again. How? Because the Kabbalists teach us that when the world fell, when Adam and Eve partook of that duality, everything fell a level. And so the eyes fell first, and then the ears fell, and the nose fell, and the mouth fell, and all the body fell. Now, the Arizal explains it fell into physicality, that there was a completely spiritual realm before the fall. And then the body literally materialized around the soul. But it fell in an order from top to bottom. And it fell throughout the 1,000 souls, master root souls, that were embedded in Adam's soul. Now, this is a detail we're going to be covering soon in our classes on reincarnation. It's dealt with directly and specifically, and it's an amazing science. If you don't believe in reincarnation, fine. Don't believe. But you can still come and learn and listen. And if you do believe or you're not sure, it's really a good idea to come and listen, because when we hear these ideas, reality starts to make more sense. That's why we call Kabbalah a science. It's empirical, but it's metaphysically empirical. Okay, so we're talking about the falls that took place stage by stage, from the spiritual into the physical realm. By the way, there's even places in the Tanakh where it happened to angels. The rabbis comment that the angels that ate actual food at the meal of Abraham were forced to take on bodies. Now that's not, it shouldn't be a new idea, because Hollywood's used the idea in several movies. But it comes from the Torah. So it's not just a Hollywood idea. But anyways, what's fascinating, I find even more, is that the repair of the world starts from the bottom and goes up. Whereas the fall obviously starts at the top and goes down. Now the generations that come after Adam have to fix what fell. And it starts with the mouth and goes up to the nose and the ears and the eyes. The eyes are considered the highest, the most sensitive spiritual organs. And physical, obviously. So what happens? Each of the generations from Adam to us is taking part in the restoration of these powers. And the tikkun of each generation is according to where they're holding on this 6,000-year map of the souls of Adam's body. Okay, that's a pretty big phrase, 6,000-year map of the souls in Adam's body. But understand, you have one master structure called Adam Arishon, the first man, and in him are all these root souls, and they fall. Now they got to be lifted back up, and we're all part of that process. And it's and for a long time, it's the ear, Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. It's the tikkun of hearing. Why? Because in the garden, the snake spoke falsely. So the repair of false speech is proper speech, which of course is learning, saying the words out loud, and prayer, and speaking nicely to people when we can. It's not always easy. That's the repair of speech, because speech was corrupted by the snake. And then afterwards, it's the repair of the ears, the hearing. Why? Because Eve heard the snake speak Lashon Hara subtly about God and about man. So her hearing was damaged. And so how do we fix the level of hearing that was broken? By Eve's hearing the wrong words, and by Adam listening to Eve and eating from the fruit when he had been told not to? Well, we have to go back to the Torah and listen to the rabbis, and listen to the halachot, and listen to the Talmud, and listen to the rabbis of the Zohar. And that listening fixes the fall of the listening in the beginning. And lo and behold, here we come in our generation, the world of video, the world of movie, the tikkun of the eyes. The fixing of the eyes is the most difficult. The rabbis say that the eyes are askaniot. They're always moving around and doing whatever they want. Try to control your eyes. Try to tell yourself not to look at something when you want to. See how hard it is. Because the eyes are directly connected by 32 nerves to the heart. And so there's this very fast communication system going on between what we feel and what we see, and what we see and what we feel. And that's what Baba Saleh was also teaching us. Ayin ro'ah v'lev chomed. Immediately, you see something, you want it. But on a deeper level, when you want something on a long-term basis, it's going to come out in your vision and you're going to see it. It'll come out in your dreams. The things we think about during the day that I want come back in my dreams. That's another idea where the heart translates into vision. So how do we fix this? We've got a generation where everybody's bent over their phone. It's kind of dangerous already. Walking down the street, everybody's looking at their phone and no one's looking where they're going. It's scary. And we got the younger generation, they're on video games all the time. Looking. It's all about the eyes. And it's the movies and it's the videos. Here we are learning Torah with the same tool. But this is the fixing of the tool. The fixing of the eyes is to see the Torah and to see the rabbis and to look at the holiness and to see the holy objects, to see the holy land. Anything that you can put in your vision plane that's holy is going to help fix your eyes. And the main tikkun, one of the main tikkunim I should say, is looking at the Shabbos candles on Friday night and staring at them and gazing at them. Because those lights are translating the will of Hashem through the woman who lit them, and those flames carry that power. Again, because we believe in the integration of the physical and the spiritual. It has to be. Otherwise, this whole thing is a mess. It's utter chaos. If, the people in the 19th century wanted to separate church and state because of the abuses of the church, the abuses of the Vatican. And the scientists come along, they want to separate spirit and matter. But you can't separate spirit and matter. Einstein proved that. E, energy is spirit, equals matter sped up to the speed of light squared. E equals mc squared is spirit equals physical sped up. Okay? And that's exactly what happened to Adam in the garden. And that's what we're trying to fix now. They were living in a hyper-light, hyper-fast realm called heaven. They ate, they fell, everything slowed down and became physical. And that's where we find ourselves today. So with all that said, I hope my friend hears this, and I hope all of you are able to appreciate this, really where we are in time. Because we are in the tikkun of the eyes, fixing what we see. And of course, you open up the Torah and you open up the holy books, and if you know Hebrew, then you know there's something very special about this language. It translates to you essences that you don't feel when I read English or Spanish or any other language. And even if you don't know Hebrew, just gazing at the letters is a powerful mantra if your heart is pure and if your mind is pure. Now, if you look at the letters and you wander and your mind wanders to here and there and everywhere, maybe it's not time yet. That's okay. I began 30 years ago, and I could barely read Hebrew. But I learned in English. And I stuck it out and went to yeshiva. And now I have such tremendous pleasure from just opening any sefer. It doesn't even matter what it's telling me. And I get pleasure from the letters. Now that's a gift from Hashem for various reasons. But everybody has their gifts. And everybody is, I guess I'm going to use the word obligated to find our gifts. But only obligated from the side of our own self-fulfillment, our spiritual fulfillment. Right? God's not going to talk to you after 120 years in heaven and say, why weren't you, the maestro of the New York Philharmonic? Well, because I can barely play a saxophone. But we have gifts, and those gifts are really our upper soul and the qualities that come through it. They might be intuitive, they might be through mathematics, it might be through science, it might be through many different disciplines and fields. But whatever your gift is, the Torah will enhance it. And the mitzvah will help you align yourself to the light in the prescribed way that it's supposed to unfold into the world. So this question of how do we live in an immodest culture when we want to be modest, we could talk about this for weeks. But of course, the first thing we have to do is worry about ourselves and not anybody else. And of course, men and women are different. And everybody knows about the power of our bodies over our senses. And certainly we live in an extremely open culture, most of us. And there's a certain level of exhibitionism everywhere, where it's become very normal for people to show themselves. You know, whether it's a guy flexing his muscles or a woman doing the same, you know. And so that desire to show myself, we have to ask, where's it coming from? Well, generally it comes from external pride. That I have a beautiful body, therefore I want to show it. Because I like the attention. You see, it's all about that getting attention. But is that really why I'm in the world? To get attention? And am I here to get attention because of my shoulders or my muscles or something like that? I don't think so. It's pretty vain. And it's pretty empty. You know, I used to play college football, and I couldn't believe when people stood in front of the mirror flexing their muscles. It just was the funniest thing in the world to me. Yeah, you got to work out. Yeah, you got to be strong. But why do I have to stare at myself in the mirror? What's going on? Ay, ay, ay. So the Torah comes along and says, wait a minute, get dressed. If you want to get attention for bringing my presence into the world. If you want to get attention, do good deeds for people that make people happy. God created you. Because, you know, when you do good deeds, they don't necessarily think, oh, you're such a great guy. But if they're on a higher level, they're going to say, thank you, God, for bringing that person into my life. That's the kind of attention we want to establish in the world. And we don't want to get attention for my clothes or my shoes or my, come on. We're not in high school anymore, folks. You know, I remember in high school, the first day of school, everybody's got to show off their new clothes. Oy vavoy. What a silliness. And the second day, it's over. The fashion show's over, and it's back to jeans and plaid shirts, you know. Aye. But, you know, when we start to develop that sensitivity to modesty, it's like refocusing your attention. That when I'm not trying to get attention, I can pay more attention to you. Now, as a therapist, that's what I have to do all the time. I'm getting paid to give you my heart and my mind. And if I'm thinking about myself, I'm lost. Okay, as a teacher of Torah, it's a little different because I'm here in my room and you're out there in Facebook land. But I still have to be focused on the material, and I know you're out there. And I assume you're listening. So, you know, this whole idea of getting attention is destroying our modesty. Because it becomes competitive. That's even more absurd. You know, the beauty pageants. What a scam. What a scam. You know, they're using women to create attention, to sell an idea. I don't know. It's embarrassing to me what people do to people for the sake of attention. What can I tell you? And I felt that way long before I was religious. But the culture slowly worked me over, you know, until I said, I got to get out of here. And I moved to Israel. And then I moved to a mountain in the desert outside of Jerusalem. because I wanted some simple things to see. I wanted simple living. And as someone once said, well, Avraham, you moved to the desert and to the mountains to get away from from society, and society followed you. Well, here we are on Facebook. That's okay, because this is safe. This is good. I used to go and teach at night on the streets in Jerusalem, teaching Rabbi Nachman. It was very exciting until the beer bottles started flying, until someone stole my Bunsen burner where I was making hot tea for people. And I said, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't be here. And then my Rosh Yeshiva said, no, Avraham, you have to give over the Torah to people, but you don't have to go out into the streets where they're throwing beer bottles and stealing. You know, they have to come to you a little bit. That's also about modesty. That the Torah is a holy thing. We wrap it in velvet. We put it inside a gilded box. We surround that with more velvet. You know, we're making it special. We're making it modest. Isn't that what a woman is supposed to do when she gets dressed? And a man as well? So all of these things affect us on conscious and unconscious levels. You can be extremely modest, but be in an immodest place. It's going to affect you eventually. You know, the Midrash says when that Rivka, the mother of Jacob and Esau, was pregnant, the two twins were inside her. And she would walk down the street. And when she would pass a temple of idol worship, the babies would start kicking. They weren't happy. They sensed something was different. And not long ago, I went inside a place there wasn't a Jewish house of worship. And I felt I had to leave. I felt like, ugh. I felt like creepy. I felt like, you know, that horror show ride at Disneyland. Now, I'm not blaming the people, because most people nowadays, they don't even know better. They can't even tell you the difference between monotheism and worshiping stars and worshiping people and worshiping money. Our minds are so broken into pieces that we can't make the distinctions anymore. But the heart can. Your true self knows where you're supposed to be. And he knows where you're healthy and where you're safe and where you're nurtured. And that's why the Jewish home is so precious to us. And that's why we put mezuzot on the door, to protect the house with the names of God. Because the mezuzah is just another piece of, like a big tefillin on the wall of the house, on the door, to protect things from not coming in. So I think it's a big question. It's a big world. You know, and I've lived on both sides of the finishing line. And I understand, and my heart goes out to people who still feel the need to get attention with their body, the need to show off things that are not supposed to be showed off according to the disciplines of holiness. And on the other hand, I understand there's very, very religious people who cover themselves in clothes, but I don't know what's going on inside their hearts either. Rabbi Natan of Breslev said, I barely know my own heart. How could I know somebody else's? And listen, if you know your own heart, you're on the way to God. If you know your own heart, your inner studio is open. And you're going to get the broadcast from your upper soul, which is a piece of God. And that's what it's about, folks. It's building that intimate relationship. And modesty just helps us hear better and see better and think better, clearer. And, you know, some days go by, a week goes by, and I haven't checked the news. And I'm like, what's happening in the world? And then I think, wow, I haven't checked the news. That means the outer world does not come into the inner world. That the Jewish home. So I'm going to say goodnight for now, and I hope these little questions and answers have been useful. And we will continue next month, Rosh Chodesh Av, which is a difficult month. Oh, by the way, it just occurs to me that the 12 months of the year in the zodiac of Judaism correspond to different organs in the body, and the organ of Tammuz is the left eye. So, you see, there's things happening behind the scenes that are guiding us what we need to learn when. And that's a little help from Hashem to teach us where we got to work. And in summertime, it's certainly different than in wintertime when it comes to guarding our eyes and to guarding our modesty. So God bless all of you. Check us out on Facebook, on YouTube, on our Patreon page. New things are coming out all the time. Poems, essays, and lots of interesting things to come. Have a great day. God bless all of you.